is WVVA in Focus, a weekly program about important issues and events in the two Virginias.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this edition of In Focus. I'm your host, Melinda Zosh. This morning, we're putting a spotlight on a West Virginia educator who's recently won the recognition of West Virginia History Teacher of the Year. Adena Barnette teaches at Ripley High School in Jackson County, and the award is given out by the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History. Its website says the institute is the leading nonprofit organization dedicated to K-12 history education while also serving the general public. And Adena is joining us right now via Zoom from Ripley, and also joining us is the teacher who nominated her, John Quessenberry, a history teacher at Woodrow Wilson High School in Beckley. So we'll get to the process of how Adena was recognized in just a moment, but first I would like our viewers to get to know her a bit more. So Adena, where are you from and where did you go to college? Why did you decide to pursue a career in education?
Well, Mel, I am from Jackson County, West Virginia, and I'm from Ripley. And I earned my undergraduate degree at West Virginia Wesleyan in Buchanan, West Virginia. And that degree was in secondary social studies education. In 2011, I was the James Madison Fellow for the state of West Virginia. And so that fellowship paid for my master's degree in American History and Government from Ashland University in Ohio. I decided to enter education because I come from a long line of public school educators. My grandfather was a school bus driver. My grandmother was a school cook, and people still talk about her hot rolls. They were talking about them earlier at a meeting I was at. And my uncle was also a high school social studies teacher and a coach at Ripley High School. So basically, I grew up at Ripley High School going to events and games, and I am a third generation graduate from Ripley High School. All of my earliest memories revolve around being at the school, and it has always been my second home. And it's kind of surreal that I actually teach American history in the same classroom where I learned it.
And that's incredible, and those hot rolls do sound really good. Might have to try those sometime. Adena, thank you. Well, tell us some more about your time at Ripley High School. So what grade do you teach right now, and how do you create your curriculum in a way that resonates with your students?
So I teach 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So 10th grade is U.S. history. 11th grade is a college West Virginia history class. They take that with U.S. history 2. And then I also teach 12th grade. I teach college, state, and local politics. And then the second half of the year, they have personal finance with the business department. Basically, my goal for my students is I want them to know the key events of our nation's history. I want them to be able to read primary source documents and be able to analyze and understand those. And I really want my students to understand how our state and our country works, because I want them to be active and engaged citizens as an adult. I have created my own curriculum for each of these classes. My goal is always to use activities and assessments where my students are using the knowledge that they've learned in class and critical thinking skills to tackle historical questions. So for example, if we're learning about the Oregon Trail, we're going to do a budget simulation where they figure out whether or not they could survive on the Oregon Trail. Have them look at what was the role of our founding parents in shaping our country, and we do a Founding Fathers Facebook project, and then things like having them tell me what they think are the top 10 events that caused the Civil War, not me telling them what I think they were. So I just enjoy making the content relevant and important to know for today.
Well, I love history as it is. You have me so excited. I wish you were my history teacher when I was in high school, Adena. That's incredible. And tell us more also about the process of becoming History Teacher of the Year on your end. What did you have to submit to the Lehrman Institute?
Well, you have to be formally nominated, which is what John did. John nominated me for the award. And on my end, for the application process, I had to submit basically my resume. I had to submit a letter of recommendation from my supervisor. My school principal wrote my letter. And then I had to submit a lesson that I had actually taught in my class. And I needed to include a lesson where we use primary sources. So the lesson that I submitted was one where my students actually read excerpts from Frederick Douglass's autobiography, and they used those excerpts to write either letters to the editor or political speeches about the abolitionist movement.
And I'd like to bring in John Quessenberry for our next question. So John, tell us more about why you nominated Adena for this recognition.
Well, everything I've been involved with in West Virginia in social studies, whenever I go, it seems like Adena's there. I'm real big on you have to have passion and enthusiasm in what you do, and Adena certainly has both of those. She loves history. She's very innovative. She's created her own courses in her school, and she also loves to instill that love of learning and history in her students and to provide them opportunities. And I think that is so important that you share what you have, but you also empower our kids to be able to have successes and lots of opportunities. And I think she does that. And she's just a tremendous influence.
And John, you just touched on this a little bit, but can you elaborate more on some of the qualities that Adena has that makes her stand out from her colleagues across the state here in West Virginia?
Well, when I mentioned about her loving history, we serve in WVEA together, and any meeting, if anything comes up that has to do with civics or history, they know, oh Lord, they're at it again, the social studies teachers. She's worked on an elective for social studies that the State Department's looking at providing this year. She's been really active in the West Virginia Council for Social Studies. Her school hosted one of our state social studies teachers conventions a few years ago.
And John, you've won this award before of West Virginia History Teacher of the Year. So what does it mean from an educator's point of view to have this honor?
Well, I was nominated by one of my former students, and that meant a lot. It always means something when peers or a group in your field recognize your excellence or acknowledge your effort. And it really meant a lot to me, some of the recommendations that a couple of the other teachers had written for me, my former principal. And I think it also really means a lot for us in West Virginia. You know, we're kind of that little engine that gets overlooked sometimes, so we celebrate each other's successes. And I think that's a reflection also on our students, because they are what drive us to have that passion and that enthusiasm and to try to be creative and work even harder on the next lesson than the one before.
And Adena, what does it mean to you to be honored as West Virginia History Teacher of the Year?
Oh, it's a huge honor. And like John said, we're very active with the West Virginia Council for the Social Studies. He is our past president, and I am now the president-elect of the organization. And so it's just a real honor to shine a light on not only what's happening in my classroom, but what's happening in classrooms all across our state. And you know, just pointing out how important history is, as well as how important it is to protect the classes that we're offering and the materials that we're offering.
All right, thank you so much, Adena and John. Stay with us, viewers. We have to take a quick break. We have much more to talk about. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back, everyone. This morning, we're shining the spotlight on a West Virginia educator who's recently been recognized as History Teacher of the Year. I'd like to welcome Adena Barnette back to the show, and once again, she joins us via Zoom from Ripley. And Adena, teachers help shape the foundation of a young person's passion for learning, and essentially your work helps set the stage for a young person's future. So why do you feel that education, and especially good and attentive teaching, are so crucial?
Well, public education's the great democratizer. It's available to every single person, and the West Virginia State Constitution guarantees that every student has the right to a thorough education. And so what I love about public education is that it ensures that all students have the same opportunities for growth and success. The reason why I do what I do is because my students are going to be citizens of this country one day. It's my job to teach them about our nation's history, about how our government works, how to pay their taxes, how to vote, what are the tough historical questions, and the background behind the history behind those questions. good teachers don't just make a difference in a single school year. They have a lifelong impact. I am still in communication with lots of former students, even those that are now in their 30s. They still reach out to me to talk about history and politics because they know that I am someone that will help them understand the issues and that I'll do that without judgment. And so my goal is always to create a safe space where students can learn, ask questions, and grow and think critically.
And Adena, in our last segment, you did share with our viewers why you decided to pursue a teaching career and that you have a family history, a family who is involved with education. But why specifically did you decide to pursue teaching history, and why high school history?
Well, as I said before, my uncle is a high school history teacher, so some of my earliest memories are playing with his history textbook and his grade book. Actually, in this room where I'm sitting right now, because I live in his old house. This has just been something that's always been a lifelong passion of mine. Back in the 90s, there was this Carnival Cruise commercial where parents announced that they were taking the kids to Civil War battlefields, and they started whining and complaining. I was the kid that wanted to go to see the battlefields, forget the cruise. Both sides of my family are politically active, so I've always been raised talking about the issues, talking about history, reading the newspaper every single day. We watched the evening news together as a family, not only the local news, but the national news. And we were always talking about current events and history at the dinner table. So even though, my parents and my grandparents didn't have degrees in this field, we were still talking about these things every single day.
And Adena, what is the most rewarding part of your job?
Well, my school, and I know this is very applicable to most schools in West Virginia, our school is a community, and also our school is the center of our community. And so it's not just about what happens in the classroom, but it's about also what happens outside the classroom. So it is such an honor to be able to cheer my students on in their school activities, whether it's band, choir, archery, football. I'm there cheering them on. It's a huge honor to write them recommendations for college and for scholarships. It's an honor to go and watch them walk into the prom, watch them walk across the stage at graduation, watch them to go off to college or to the military or to a technical training school to see them pursue their dreams. And it's also an honor to watch many of my students pursue a future in American history and government. So for example, I have two former students who are interns in Washington, D.C. this summer. One is working for Senator Manchin, another is working for Senator Capito, and I'm really, really proud of that. Actually, the student that is working for Senator Capito actually ran for Jackson County School Board last year. So again, another moment that I was really proud about. And one of my students that just graduated this year was actually accepted into an Ivy League college, and she's going to be pursuing political science and history as well.
Well, that's so exciting to see your students go on and succeed in different career paths too. And Adena, you've been teaching for almost 2 decades, so share with us some more anecdotes about feedback you've received from your former students over the years of how their education helped shape them essentially into who they are today.
Well, I'm always proud when my students let me know that they're the top history students or political science students in their college classes. I've heard from a lot of them over the years that the rigorous reading and writing that we have done in my classes have gotten them ready for college. One of the professors at Wesleyan, who I know, she always tells her students when they know something or they do something well on a project that they need to reach out to that teacher that taught them that and tell them thank you. And so not only have I gotten lots of thank yous from my students over the years, but she's also thanked me as well. And it's always nice when students also stand up for teachers and are there to recognize what we've done and what impact that we have made in their lives.
Yeah, and Adena, your job as an educator is so important. So before we go to break, I just want to say thank you for what you do as well. Your job is so crucial to helping young people get passionate about learning, and that helps shape their future in college and military beyond whatever they decide to do. So thank you as well for what you do.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We have to take another quick break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to this edition of In Focus, everyone. This morning, we've been talking to West Virginia History Teacher of the Year, Adena Barnette. She teaches high schoolers at Ripley High in Jackson County. And Adena, once again, we appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
And a few years ago, West Virginia teachers were in the state and national headlines for going on strike. So I'd like to touch on that for a moment. And they were on strike for better wages and another effort that was viewed as privatizing public education. And our viewers may recall, but this was back in 2019. Adena, what are your thoughts on those strikes at that time?
Well, thanks for the question. So I wear a lot of hats as a teacher, and one of the hats that I wear is I'm president of the Jackson County Education Association. So I was definitely on the front lines during both the 2018 and 2019 walkout. And I can tell you that the work that we started then is definitely not finished. We've got lots that we still need to do to make our schools better. One of the things that we need to do is better fund our schools. We haven't changed the school aid formula, the amount of dollars that our schools receive per student in over 30 years. And as you know, the price of everything has gone up in the last 30 years. So we definitely need to improve that. We also need, as a veteran educator, I see that we really need opportunities for growth and leadership for our teachers. I was hired as a teacher at age 22. And so I technically have the same job now at age 40 that I had at 22. And so we need to find a way to, not let our teachers stagnate, to let them grow and improve over time. We also need to do things to preserve educator rights, and we need to do much more to pay our educators as professionals. As a leader in both walkouts, it was really important to me because I believe in our public schools. That uncle I mentioned earlier, I remember fondly when he was on the picket line in 1990, standing up for the same things. I'm really proud to be a product of our state's public school system. And what I really want for all of my students is for them to have the same opportunities for success that I had. I am who I am today because of my public school teachers, and they believed in me. And from the very earliest age, they told me I could be anything. And as an adult in the education system, it was those same teachers who mentored me and, helped me through those early years to become the teacher that I am today. And so I want that same level of mentorship and support for this next generation of educators like I had.
Yeah, absolutely. That mentorship can make all the difference in a young person's life. And also, Adena, what do you think can be done at the legislative level or otherwise to help teachers?
I think one of the things that we just need to remember is we just need to let teachers teach. We need to give them time to teach, as much instructional time without distractions or testing as possible. We really need to support newer educators with resources and training. We also need to find a way to recruit newer educators. For example, when I was a student at Wesleyan, they graduated 35, 40 students a year in public education, to become public educators. And now, they're graduating maybe 5, 6, 7 students a year. As I said before, I think we need to definitely find ways to give veteran educators opportunity to grow and to become leaders in their schools that aren't administrative positions, because we want to keep our good teachers in the classroom. And I think that we also need to make sure that we protect things that teachers have come to rely on, such as Section 18A of the West Virginia Code, things like protecting grievance procedures, the right to a duty-free lunch, guaranteed planning period. And I really think it's important that we also push for things like smaller class sizes. I can tell you it's way easier to teach and connect with 15 or 20 students than it is 30 or 35 students. I also think it's really important right now, especially as we're coming out of COVID, that we increase the number of social workers and counselors in our schools, because our students have a lot going on outside of the school and they really need our support.
And Adena, what message do you have for those who are thinking about pursuing a career in education? What advice do you have for those young people?
The message that I would give them is the same message that I remind myself every single day, that there is nothing more important than educating future generations of West Virginia. Um, our kids need us. Our kids need you to consider joining public education and becoming a teachers. And if you do become a teacher, you need to be that kind of teacher that will support your students and be there for them and will believe in them and will give them the skills that they need for success.
And Adena, what would you say is the key to your success as an educator?
So I think some of my keys to success are the fact that I'm extremely passionate about my content. I love American history. It is something that I eat, sleep, breathe. I am constantly, reading and learning new things. I have clear expectations and guidelines in my classroom, and I stick to those. And my students know exactly what the process is for turning in assignments or what is the expectation for a test. But I also believe in having fun. So even though I have clear expectations and guidelines, we also do a lot of laughing and learning. I also believe that every student, a second that we're in class matters. And so my classes always worked from bell to bell. There's no lag time. There's no hanging out at the end of the period. We're going to keep going until the bell rings. Um, and I also remind myself all the time that if a student doesn't learn something in my class, they may not learn it at all. So it's so important to make sure that every lesson and assignment that we do in class is relevant for things that my students need to know as adults and as citizens.
And it's great that you utilize the whole time that you're with your students too. That can make all the difference. And Adena, we all have rough days and great days at our jobs, no matter what industry we work in. I'm sure a lot of viewers can relate to that out there. So what do you do in particular on the rough days to keep your spirits up and to keep pushing forward on those days that aren't so great?
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you that I have great students and they are really what keeps me going and they're what give me faith in the future. I know that we are going to have a bright future because our students will be the ones that will be the leaders. When I have an incredibly rough day, I have a stack of letters that I keep in my desk drawer that I pull out. One of the activities that we do with our seniors every year is we send out gratitude letters. And so in those gratitude letters, the students write to 3 people who've made an impact on their lives as students. And so I have a big stack of those. And so on the really rough days, I definitely go to those letters and remind myself of why I'm in this profession.
And Adena, what's next for you in regards to this honor of being West Virginia History Teacher of the Year? Will you compete at the national level?
Yes, there's a national competition. So there are 53 winners. And so that includes DC and then like the federal schools. And so we'll find out next month who made the top 10. So my fingers are crossed. And then we'll find out in October who the national winner is.
All right, we'll definitely keep our fingers crossed for you here too at WVVA. We really hope you win at the national level as well. And we have just a few minutes left in this segment, Adena, but do you have any concluding thoughts on this recognition or anything else you feel is important for our viewers to know about you or the field of education?
Absolutely. I think what I would just add is that I would encourage every parent, every grandparent, every aunt, uncle, anyone that has a kid in your life, please do what you can to educate your kids, while you're at home or on vacation. Take your kids out to learn about our state's history. When you go to the polls, take your kids with you to go vote. If you're going to the courthouse to pay your property taxes, take your kids with you. Take them to the DMV so they can see how the process works to get your license. Talk to your kids about history. Talk to your kids about politics and about state government and about current events. I know a lot of our kids have questions about current events, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're not talking about current events at home. I think it's important to explain to our kids why it's important to be a good citizen and all of those aspects that make up a good citizen. Being a good citizen doesn't just mean running for office. It could also mean, picking up trash around your community. And I think for all of us that it's important to point out the people that you see who are already making a difference in your community, and hold those people up as examples.
And before we go, I have to ask, because I'm a history buff myself, what's your favorite part of American history?
Oh, see, that's a struggle. There's so much I love. My focus in history is predominantly pre-1900s. So I'm really into colonial history. I love teaching the American Revolution. Basically anything up to the Civil War Reconstruction era is my wheelhouse. I just did a professional development last week with the National Endowment for the Humanities on the excuse me, on the Industrial Revolution and on 19th century social reform, and that's a topic that I'm really, really into and have done several seminars on over the years. So anything in that pre-1900 wheelhouse is really my favorite. But I also love West Virginia history as well. I think our state has an extremely rich history.
Yes, it does.
So it's great to share that love and passion for our state with my students as well.
And we've run out of time. I could talk to you all day, Adena, about history. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And that does it for this edition of In Focus. Be sure to join us again next Sunday. We hope you all have a great day. See you next time.